Hello everyone. This hour on Verbling. The next in my... Oh, let me just mute everyone's microphone for a second. Otherwise we're going to get a lot of noise. 1 second, please. Okay, let me start again. Hello everyone. This hour on Verbling. The next in my great short stories class. We're on short story number 24. Can you believe it? 24 short stories. Today we're going to start a new short story. Herbert Gould's Death in Miami. We're going to be reading a little bit about the background of Herbert Gould because I'm sure you haven't heard of him, but we're also going to do the first third of the story and try to get in a little discussion. Well, we'll talk about this in just a minute. First, a little introduction about me. I'm Jon-Eric, your Verbling teacher for this hour. I'm an American teacher from New York, hanging out in Lisbon, Portugal to bring you this class. By the way, here are 3 quick rules to help you participate. Don't forget to turn off, tune in, and open up. That means turn off your microphone when you're not speaking so we can keep the classroom nice and quiet. Tune in to the new words that you're learning when you are speaking so that I can correct you and give you feedback. Finally, open up to your classmates. Relax and have fun. We're all here to learn, and this is a safe and respectful place to practice your English. And that is a little bit about me. Now, I want to know a little bit about you. Let me see if I can get the camera on. More or less. I'll move back here. Carmen, long time no see.
Good morning, John. Good morning, everybody. Yes, it's true.
We thought that you were missing in action. We were worried, Carmen.
No worry. I'm still alive.
Oh my goodness.
How are you anyway?
I'm all right.
Okay.
I'm probably going to be moving to your time zone very soon. We'll see. But for now, I'm still where I was. We'll see. I'll let you know. Not in Spain, in Italy.
Okay.
We'll see what happens. But look who we got here, Carmen. Daniel. You probably don't remember Daniel.
Yes, I do.
You do, okay.
Yeah.
He's like the new improved Daniel, because when I first met him, he couldn't speak English, and now he speaks perfect English.
Yes,
right, Daniel?
I know it. I know her.
Congratulations, Daniel.
Thank you.
Daniel has made a very big improvement. You've transformed yourself, Daniel.
I happy we have a new text today.
Good.
I get for in the beginning. It's a good thing.
It's going to be a good one.
It's a good one.
Very different from the last.
But the thing is, I think he has improved because he has had a very good teacher. That's why.
Yes, I know it.
Really?
Well, I guess so.
I follow him every day.
You've got to introduce me to.
Why.
You've got to introduce me to your teacher, Daniel. You've got to introduce me someday. Let me say a quick hello to Jesus as well. Hello, Jesus. How are you?
Hello. Good morning.
So, Jesus, you were here the other day, right?
No, not really.
No.
I showed a class from you.
I thought you were in the class.
No, 2 weeks ago, more or less.
Okay. So there was a different Jesus the other day. Yes. It wasn't you. Okay.
Yes, yesterday I was with Daniel in another class.
Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. Very good.
And where is Yuki?
Yuki's taking a vacation this week.
Okay,
I think. Either that or he overslept. One or the other. I'm not sure.
Okay, then.
And I saw Sylvia floating around there, but I don't see where she is now. I saw Sylvia floating around.
Well, she just wrote a message. She said, I can't hear, I'll be back in a sec.
Oh, she did?
Mm-hmm. That's what she wrote.
Oh, yeah, I see now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
She should be in this class. Okay. Let me just write a quick message. Hi, Sylvia. Let me know if I can help, because I don't know what I can do, but it's always nice to offer. Listen to this. Listen very carefully. Normally, I try to come up with some little activity to get you prepared for what you're going to read. I don't really know what to do with this particular author, so here's what I'm going to do. Just listen to the very beginning. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just the very beginning of it's kind of a short biography, but maybe it'll start to help put the text in perspective. I don't know if this is a good idea or a bad idea, but I'm just going to read the very, very beginning because I thought yesterday this might be a good introduction. And then we're going to jump right into the story. Hang on just a second here. 1 second here. Let me just figure out. Yeah, okay, yeah. It's kind of an interesting beginning. So, and you know what I'll do? Why don't I share my screen as well so you can take a look and follow along. By the way, a quick hello to Silver, who's just joining us right now. Hello, Silver. How are you? Let's see if he gets his microphone on. No? Okay. Well, Silver, when you get your microphone on, just say a quick hello. Let me share my screen quickly. You can follow along or just listen. I'm just going to read the first 2 paragraphs to set a little bit of a context for the story, and then we'll see if this helps or not for you to sort of understand where this is coming from, where this type of writing is coming from. So let's take a look. Herbert Gold was born in the Paris of northeastern Ohio, or Cleveland, as we commonly call it. Raised in the community, that's a joke by the way, raised in the community of Lakewood, he was a member of the sole Jewish family around. Sole meaning only one, the unique family. And noticed the difference early on. While other fathers wore suits and ties to work, his dad was a working man who owned his own store. While other parents spoke in a flat-tongued style of Midwestern American English, both of his immigrant parents had accents. Rather than see this as a liability, Gold used his outsider status in his writing. He writes, he says, quote, to master the world, but, he adds, you don't write just for yourself because you want to communicate. It's an act of sharing with others. So the first thing we know about him is that he has this outsider status. And if you ever read about him, and I gave you a few links if you want to read about the author, at the top of the text, there's a few links there, you'll notice that he tends to be decade of his life. So it's not that his name is so well known, but he's known as these different types of kind of outsider status, like it says. So either a hippie writer or a beatnik writer. Later on he's a middle-aged writer, or he's a Jewish writer. So he always has these tags, which is kind of interesting. That it kind of gives him a sense that he's different than everyone else, that he always needs a label. Okay, second and last paragraph of our introduction. Gold suspects it was his younger brother who first put him into permanent storytelling mode. They shared a bedroom and would stay awake at night telling each other funny and scary stories. He crafted his own experience in Cleveland, hanging out in a candy store frequented by odd citizens and by writing poems to send to New York literary magazines. When at age 17 years old, he learned that several of his poems had been accepted. He traveled to New York and went to a party given by the editor and attended only by other poets. That night, he met the author Anais Nin, who softly asked him to come with her to her houseboat in Hoboken. I had no idea that Anais Nin lived in Hoboken, by the way. He agreed and followed her out of the party. Then he says, I was ready for whatever came next, he remembers. Then, near the bottom of the stairwell, she spoke the fateful words which abruptly altered my fate. She said, you remind me, she whispered, remind me of my father. And it was the most terrifying declaration she could have uttered. So, I don't know if that helps or hurts, that's a little biographical sketch of the author. So what kind of, I don't know, before we start to read the story, what kind of, what are you expecting from an author with this background? What kinds of themes or what kind of style would you be expecting? Because there's a lot going on in this little biography in the first 2 paragraphs. I'm just curious, what impression do you have? Any impression to start off with?
Something poetry?
Something about poetry. Absolutely. So he's not known for writing poetry, but it's a good idea to keep that in mind and think about how he writes about everyday life. Does he use a device or an approach like a poet would? I would argue that he does. We'll see. Any other themes that you notice? For me, the biggest theme, well, 2 things. One is that he has this connection with the literary world with Anais Nin, that's like a major writer of the time. I don't know why that was a terrifying experience for him, but also this idea of the road trip. At 17 years old, he gets published in a major magazine. He drops everything. I don't even know if he graduated high school. I don't know what happened. And he goes across America. Okay, it's not that far, but from Ohio to New York, and he takes a road trip. You're going to see something similar happen, I think, in this story as well. Plus, think about the time period. It's a time period of the Beat Generation and the hippies. Does anyone know who the Beat Generation is? Have you heard that before? Sound familiar? Yes? No? Maybe?
Freedom.
Freedom.
Yes, I have heard about the Beat Generation. It is a 1970s generation
little earlier.
Earlier.
Before the hippies. So it's like early 60s, even late 50s, early 60s. They got famous in the 60s, but it's just sort of the social movement that it led to the free love, free speech.
The Doors.
Later on. What's that, Daniel?
The Doors.
What's that? I couldn't hear.
The Doors.
Yeah, but it's they're more sort of hippie-ish, right? Because they were sort of like late 60s.
Some famous writers belong to this Beat Generation, like William Burroughs.
Burroughs, right?
Maybe we have read in this class.
No, we haven't.
No?
No.
Burroughs, no?
Too pornographic. We can't read it. He's a very good writer, but couldn't read it in his class. Too much. He's a very funny writer, but it's a little tough to read. So Burroughs is one, Kerouac is another, and Ginsberg is those are probably the 3 big ones.
Yes.
Right. And it's funny you mentioned that, because Herbert Gold and Ginsberg were actually very close. They were very good friends. And maybe that's something we could use to compare them. Maybe to compare the writing, if you know a little bit about it. But they went to oh, that's actually right. They went to Columbia together. I think they went to the same university, if I remember right, or they lived near each other, something like that. Well, let's keep this idea in mind when we start to read, and we'll see if it affects our reading or if it affects the way we look at the story at all. So what I'm going to do, share the screen with you. Oh, let me see if this will let me. Oh, the Hangout's not letting me share. 1 second. Let me open up the PDF. There we go. Okay, when you open that link, you will see this text, this graphic, but I'll share my screen with you. Okay. Hopefully you can see that okay. And one last question. I won't ask you what comes to mind when you see the insects, but I won't ask you. But just keep that in mind. What do you think? This image was chosen for a reason. We have to sort of think about why this comes up in the story and what it means. It's going to be an important image, I think. So let's get started. You've got the table of contents there. If you get lost, we're going to go to part 1. You've got all sorts of interesting links about the author if you want to read an interview by him or an interview that he did with Nabokov. Could be interesting. But we're going to start here. As is customary in these classes, Carmen always starts us off, and we've missed her. She's been gone for so long. So Carmen, would you do the honors today?
Okay.
Do you see where we are?
Yes, just in Miami Beach, part 1. The state of madness can be defined partly as an extreme of isolation of one human being from everyone else. It provides a model for dying. Only an intermittent and fragmentary awareness of others interrupts the black folding of the layers of self upon each other. This also defines the state of that. I don't know how to pronounce it. Dilemma. Okay. Dilemma known as mental health.
Right. So that's a pretty big first sentence. So we have to digest that a little bit. Let's think about that and come back to it because it's a bit abstract. Okay, but remember, he's defining what madness means. Okay, we'll come back to it in a second. Keep going, Carmen.
Okay.
Here.
I've got the documenting here. There is a false madness induced by the accidents of isolation which prisoners, travelers, and the very ill may sometimes experience without giving up their return ticket. Shortly, you out there all know what I mean from your own troubles and painful decisions. To say that it's false madness does not soften its extremity. The mask of existence fits harshly on your skin, but it's in fact your only skin. And when harshly your skin is peeled off beneath it, your naked banana and your naked isolation is no joy to you.
Do you feel like a naked banana?
No. No, it doesn't.
I have no idea exactly what he means by that.
But it comes when you get too much isolated, I would say.
Isolated. Absolutely. What do you make of these first two big, heavy existential paragraphs, Carmen? What do you think? I mean, we don't know what he's talking about yet, but let's just try to make some sense of it because it'll get confusing if we lose it. So, what do you think he's trying to say so far? We haven't even gotten into the story yet, but he gives us this philosophical preface in a way. What do you think he's trying to say?
I don't know, but he is pointing out all about isolation, so perhaps he's going to experience that in some way. I don't know.
I agree.
And,
he's setting us up to understand something that we're probably going to encounter in the story. I agree with that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay,
and,
great.
And he's giving just his definition of isolation. So
can you summarize it? Can you summarize it? How would you summarize his definition of isolation? In a word or two.
When he sets for him, isolation is becoming a state of madness. I mean, you get so much isolated that you get mad. So
mad meaning crazy, right?
Oh, that's it. Bananas, as he says.
Maybe that's what he meant by banana. I didn't think about that. If you're crazy, you're bananas.
That's it.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Okay. Interesting. All right. I'm gonna just circle around the room in the order that I see you. Okay? And maybe everyone can take kind of 2 paragraphs. That way everyone will get more of a chance to read as well. I'll be correcting pronunciation and I'll be asking you a few questions along the way so that we're picking up the important details to make sense of the story. So Daniel, why don't you continue? Now we're going to get into the story itself. Can you continue during a period?
Okay. During a period of work on a long job of writing in the winter of 1958, I deliberately,
like this, deliberately,
I deliberately withdrew myself from all those who knew my name and traveled by automobile in a slow stage through the deep south to Miami Beach, Key West, Havana, and finally back up toward Detroit. No one asked me to write a novel. No one asked me to go away. But I did anyway. I was tempted by the prospect of dreaming through my story amid a pleasant chaos of sun and sea, all other responsibilities suspended, and so arranged it for myself.
Oh, just repeat three words. First, traveled.
Traveled,
Good, because I was hearing traveled, but there's no id here. It's d. Traveled.
traveled,
Good. Chaos.
chaos,
Chaos.
chaos,
That's it. It's two syllables. And finally, arranged.
arranged.
Have you ever done something like this? Take a trip for no reason, just to sort of forget about your responsibilities? Or have you ever felt this way? I know
No,
I have. I,
I'm very responsibility.
I'm very responsible, but
Yes.
every time I go somewhere, the big relief is that I have an excuse not to have to think about anything else. So I don't know. I relate to this. All right, keep going, Daniel.
Work is very fine, but after days work, isolation,
Isolation.
isolation, silence, and death seemed to follow me through the hazy carnival of Miami, the casual resort indolence of Key West, and the smoky, blistered elegance of a tourist Havana. In Havana, from the rooftop of the Ambos Mundos hotel, I could see Batista police laughing with their weapons in front of public buildings. Occasionally there were bombs. Once a body happened to be left in the street, and people hurried by as if they knew nothing, nothing, nothing at all but the next step before them.
Okay, so what period are we in? Who's launching the bombs?
Who?
Who is setting off the bombs in Havana? What period are we in?
I should read another time.
Is this 2014? Class? Class?
I think it is in the end of 16th, no, 17th.
No, it's
No?
1958. Look at the first line. In the winter of 1958. In the winter of 1958.
Sorry.
So, who's setting off the bombs?
It's the revolution.
Exactly.
Castro.
It's Castro. So,
Okay.
so he takes this road trip, and one of the places he goes to is pre-revolutionary Cuba. You know, when Cuba was. Did you ever see The Godfather when they go down to Cuba during the revolution? I think it was
Yes.
Godfather 2, actually.
Yes.
So you know, the big casinos and the places for American playboys and rich
Amazing
people to
car.
hang out. Exactly. And if you go there today, they still have the same cars.
Yes. I saw
Right.
I saw them.
Have you been to Havana?
Yes.
Oh, wow. There you go. So everything is like frozen in time, you know,
Yes.
because of the embargo and because of well, not a lot of economic growth, I suppose. Mostly because of the embargo, I would imagine. So he takes this road trip. We now know the time period, and he says no one asked him to go, just his curiosity. Maybe we should keep that in mind too. By the way, what do you think a Zazzy Carnival of Miami is? Zazzy is not a word. He made it up. Not really a word. So what do you think he means by the Zazzy Carnival of Miami? The indolence of Key West, the blistered elegance of tourists' Havana. What do you think he means by that, Zazzy Carnival? How does he feel about these places? What do you think, Daniel? How does he feel about these places? What's he trying to get us to see? In your opinion.
I think is describing a kind of high society or
Could be, yeah. So certainly it's different than where he was. We know he's from Ohio originally. But when you think of the word zazzy, it's a word that doesn't really mean anything. It's just that sound, zazzy. So for me,
It's cool. Could be cool.
cool.
Sassy.
It sounds a little bit like the word jazz or jazzy. So you get this kind of sense of bright lights in music, maybe. And then,
Classy.
could be, yeah, could be classy. I have a feeling that it's kind of false classy, like a lot of bright lights and colors and noise.
No,
But
no,
kind
I
of
said flashy with F, no classy.
Oh, I thought you said classy. Sorry, flashy. Yeah, that's it. Zazzy, flashy, kind of. What's the word? I can't remember the word I'm looking for. There's a word I'm looking for when everything is just kind of like superficial and anyway, it'll come to me. So that's the picture that I get. I don't know. Let's keep going. So we're up to you, Jesus. We're going to go down here, take us to the bottom of the page, and maybe the next page as well. At Key West, Jesus.
Okay. At Key West, a few days before Christmas, I visit the Turtle Slaughterhouse. Slaughterhouse.
Good.
It is one of the few tourist attractions on this spot of island, North Havana. Raised far out into the sea off the coast of Florida. Visitors take their kiddies by the hand and lead them to see the nice turtles.
What's a slaughterhouse, Jesus? What happens at a slaughterhouse?
No, I don't know what is that meaning.
Class, help him out.
Zoo, a kind of zoo.
A kind of?
The animal should be killed.
Killed, exactly.
Okay, this is slaughterhouse.
So Daniel, not any kind of a zoo, because you don't kill the animals in a zoo. So, but you're right, Daniel. He brings they bring their kids there. Tourists bring their kids there as if it was a zoo, but they kill the animals. Kind of nasty.
Ah, okay.
Kind of nasty, actually. Is that clear, Jesus?
Yes, more or less.
Okay, very good. Keep going.
Okay. Before being killed and canned, the turtles swim in dense crowds, bumping each other in the murky water, armor clashing, duly arching against the high pens. Later, thrust on a plank dock, they lie unblinking in the sun, their flippers pierced and tied. The tough leather of their skin does not disguise their present helplessness and pain. They were thick, sun-hardened accumulations of blood and their wounds.
Barbados, at their wounds.
Blood at their wounds. Yes.
Wounds means when you're cut. And you're
yes. Okay. Barbados turtles, as large as children, they belong to a species which has been eliminated locally by harvesting of the water near Key West, but the commercial tradition still brings them here to be slaughtered. Crucified like thieves, they breathe in light size.
Wait, they breathe in little size.
They breathe in little size. They gulp, they wait.
So, what do the turtles look like? Even though people are bringing their kids there, what image comes to mind? Because he says crucified like thieves. Do they look like they're being crucified? If you look at the paragraph before.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. I understand they kill for eat them.
Exactly. They're going to be put in a can.
Yes.
Right, because it says before being killed and canned, the turtles are in dense corrals. So like these, like bulls are corralled off in like little fenced-in areas. So they're in little fenced-in areas in the water. They bump into each other. Their armor clashing. Well, they're not. They don't wear armor. They're not knights. but they have hard shells which are banging into each other. And then later, trussed on a plank dock. A dock is like where the boats connect to the...
Mwah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yes.
So they're put on this plank of wood, piece of wood that serves as a dock. They lie unblinking. Their flippers are pierced and tied. Pierced, that means that they're cut with they're nailed into the plank. So they are literally crucified. Literally.
Uh-huh. To be dry.
Nasty. Exactly, yeah. To be dried in the sun, to die there. And it doesn't sound like they're dead when they're crucified. Their skin does not disguise their present helplessness and pain. So they seem like they're alive. So this is like a horrible image, right? And it kind of goes back to that first... It reminds me of the paragraph earlier where it says, what was it? One time, occasionally there were bombs in Havana. Once a body happened to be left in the streets, and people hurried by as if they knew nothing at all. Well, this image of the turtle is far more emotional than that image of the body of a human being being left in the street of Havana. Kind of interesting that I feel a lot more about the description of the helpless turtle than I do about the body in the street. I don't know what it means, but it's just what I notice. All right.
Okay.
So we're going to keep going. Let's keep going around the room. 2 paragraphs each. Shadow, why don't you take the next 2 for us?
Okay. At a further stage, in the room where the actual slaughtering occurs, the butchers straight through gore in heavy boots. The visitor must proceed on a catwalk. A misstep will plunge him into
Plunge. Plunge means to fall into. Will plunge.
plunge him into a slow river of entrails and blood. Because it was near Christmas time, the owners of the plant had installed a speaker system for musical divertisement of the butchers, and while the turtles dried under the sun or lay exposed to the butchers' knives, Christmas bells tolled out electronic.
Toll means to ring the bell. Bong. In this case, it's Christmas bells. You know, the sound of Christmas. Bong, 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 bong.
Okay. Electronically
amplified. Remember, this is 1958. We didn't have a lot of electronics back then. So the music, the Christmas music, is going through the speakers. That's a big thing back then. It was new.
God rest ye merry gentlemen, or the Bing Crosby recording of Adisti Vidilis.
Can anyone sing God rest ye merry gentlemen?
I used to sing
merry gentlemen, dun, 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 dun. La 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 la. Got it?
Got it.
So can you picture this, Shadow? A bunch of crucified turtles and happy electronic music. Well, not electronic, but you get the idea. It's a pretty weird scene. How would you feel if you were standing there watching it? How would you feel?
I feel silly.
I would feel pretty disgusted, I think. I'm not really sure. So it's a very, very strange scene, and it probably smells pretty bad because you're like in this, all these turtles in murky water, and they're being dried. So there's got to be a reason. He goes through this road trip, and he ends up with this image. There's got to be a connection between the things we've seen so far, right? First, this philosophical beginning about isolation. Then we get a little bit of his road trip, and he ends up at this turtle farm, and he's describing a horrific scene where people are coming and bringing their kids there, and the turtles are being slaughtered. So I don't know where he's going with this yet. We've got to find out. um, so why don't we just keep going around the room? That maybe we should just go around the room, see if we can go around more than once. So Sylvia, why don't you take the next one? Because these are kind of dense paragraphs.
Yes.
Go for it.
Okay. These commercial details are not intended to support a special plea on behalf of the human harvesting of Barbados turtles. In fact, let me grant that I sought out this scene and visited the abattoir without having
Abattoir, French word.
abattoir.
Abattoir.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't
That's
know.
like that's where they kill the animals. Is the abattoir.
Abattoir without having any proper business there at all. Merely curiosity and the need to confirm my imagination about it. I should be judged for vulgarity by the men who choose out of purity not to follow me, not by the man I saw lurking outside, with a face revealed by the horrified fascination which makes it impossible for him to visit his dreams. What had I done which he could not permit himself? Was I filthy? I don't know.
Filthied.
Filthy.
Filthy means dirty. So
Okay.
was I filthy? Did I dirty myself? Did I soil myself? Did I make myself unclean and impure?
Was I quickened by pleasure, but obscurely nourished? Was I fed on covert turtle joys after trampling turtle blood? Had I asked permission from the butcher and plead a knife with my own hands on the belly of one of the slow, unblinking dragon head, ancient sea best? And did it arch its graceful dragon neck in reproach as I stabbed? He stared at me like a Jesus lover, imagining my weakness, rabid and hopeless, wanting to bury his head in the reek on my hands.
So he didn't kill anyone or anything. I think he's just describing a look that he got from a tourist or someone as he walked into the place. And then he's just imagining, what is this guy thinking about me as I walk in there? Does he think I'm going to stab a turtle in the gut? Right? So he's kind of imagining what he must appear like just by choosing to go into that place. I don't think he actually did anything, by the way. He's just talking about the imagination. Go ahead, Sylvia. So, does that make sense, more or less?
Yes, what is lurking? I saw lurking outside.
Lurking. Let me ask the group first. Can anyone give her an example of lurking?
Uh,
Does it sound familiar?
Maybe a tiger was lurking,
A tiger is lurking. What was the tiger doing if it's lurking? I agree.
waiting, and hiding.
Yeah, that's it. Waiting, hiding, maybe a little suspicious. So you could just say being outside, but lurking means that there's some reason, some secret, or waiting for something. I agree. Any other words? This is not an easy paragraph. Any other words that are unclear?
No,
Are we cool? All right,
Yeah.
Yuki, you're gonna bring us to the bottom of the page here. Let's find out. we got to get through the turtle incident to find out where this is going. So let's take us away from the turtles, Yuki.
Okay. Most of us turn from the vision of death only out of weakness, and this is no turning from death. Serve up your turtle stick, gourmet,
Gourmet.
gourmet friend, with no protest from me. I'll read at your table. A ninth rendition. One gentleman said of being crossbred to his wife, turtle is tasty, somewhat gamey meat. Protein nourishes the brain, brings oxygen and freedom.
So he's making a statement about death here because they're in an abattoir.
Awful statement.
Awful statement. And also the joke comes back because, they're imagining the tourists. Oh, a nice rendition because, Bing Crosby, Christmas music is playing. Bing Crosby is the guy who sang White Christmas. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. He's the one who sang that. So this is Christmas music. So that's coming back as well. Okay, sorry to interrupt. Keep going, Yuki.
Okay. A few days later, in Miami Beach, I participated in two trivial accidents. My hotel was in one of the oldest, therefore least expensive parts of the town, only a short block from the sea, and a short block from restaurant, and therefore very convenient to my casual schedule. Breakfast at Wayland's, a stretch of writing.
Stretch means a bit of writing.
Okay. A long swim, lunch, a pleasant bit of loafing on the beach, then perhaps some baked work at my typewriter on the tar roof. Tar roof.
Tar roof. Tar is that black substance.
Okay.
To protect it from the sun and the rain. To seal the roof, they put tar on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like.
So,
go ahead.
On the tar roof, solarium, and another swim before dinner. I had a habit in the morning of disregarding the elevator, heading down a back stairway of the Webster Hotel through an alley.
Through an alley, a little street, an alley.
Okay, through an alley, and so shortcutting to the drugstore. One day, wearing tennis shoes, I felt an evil slide and crunch underfoot, and knew first by the shrinking in my heart, and then by simple inspection that I had stepped on a small animal.
So let's find out what kind of animal. You know when you're walking and suddenly
maybe ant?
Maybe. But you know when you're walking, your foot suddenly slips and you're thinking, oh, either I stepped on something disgusting. It's either something that came out of a dog or something that has legs and crawls. Slippery, exactly. Well, Yuki, let's find out what it is. Keep going. One more.
One more. It seemed to be a variety of tropical cockroach.
Cockroach?
I see. It had been perhaps an inch and a half long, longer with its wings spread. Oh. And it had strayed from the raised platform nearby where the hotel stored its rubbish. Now it raised twitching, legs scrambling in the air without moving, and the yellow ooze.
Ooze is like a sticky, nasty liquid. We don't know what it is. A yellow ooze.
Very awful writing. A yellow ooze seeped from its body within the crushed carapace.
Carapace. I don't know actually how to say that word. I know what it is. It means like a shell. It means shell. Okay. Actually, I don't know the pronunciation now that you mention it.
Carapace. I suppose.
Because it's a French word, isn't it?
I don't know. In Spanish, it's caparazón.
Hold on. Carapace in English. It's pace.
Carapace.
Carapace. The shell.
Mm-hmm. Okay, shell of turtle, maybe.
Right.
Carapace. I suppose it was already dead despite all this nervous movement. I went for a walk, told myself that this was a silly matter to be fretful about I was merely isolated. And
Ah, isolated again. He talked about that before.
uh, and finally took my habitual breakfast: orange juice, scrambled eggs, toast, coffee.
Yeah, after looking at the yellow ooze and the nasty legs moving around, it's nice to have
It
breakfast.
sounds disgusting.
Pretty much.
Sounds a
Let's
disgusting breakfast.
let's find out how. Does this remind you of anything? It kind of reminds me of the turtles, because we had this turtle being slaughtered on its back, and now we've got this nasty roach upside down with yellow ooze coming out of it. There's got to be a connection. I don't know what it is, but there's got to be a reason.
Mm.
Amir, take us away. An hour later. Amir, are you there?
Yes, it's me, Amr.
Hey, there we go.
An hour later, the dead beast was glued by its own innards to the paving of the alley.
Of the alley, little
Of the
street
alley.
alley.
Of the alley. See, the Florida sun was moving through the sky above it. But now there was also a row of ants leading to it, another leading away, like twin caterpillars, resembling their unity of purpose. They were not merely eating, of course, they were carrying off the meat to their hell someplace, but the dead
Dead?
raw, dead,
Dead.
dead,
Yeah, there we
raw,
go.
dead roach still twitched, and when the tickling jaws struck, it fluttered, squeezed, plainly pushed in its place. The ants went scrambling away, each carrying its minuscule stick.
We say it like this: minuscule.
Minuscule,
Minuscule
minuscule.
means tiny, small. And steak is steak, beef. So so he's looking at this dead cockroach, but it's not really dead. It's crushed, but it's still moving. And what does he see? What's the surprising thing that he notices? Because he goes to breakfast and he comes back and it's still there. And what's different about it now, Amir? Is that clear what's different?
No, not clear actually.
What are the ants doing to the cockroach that he stepped on? That's the key thing. What are the ants doing?
Yeah, they weren't merely eating.
They weren't merely eating. They were carrying pieces of it away. Just like, to me, this reminds me of the turtles we read about earlier, that they're alive, but they're being dried in the sun, like this horrendous way to kill an animal. Well, the cockroach is still alive, and it's isolated. We keep getting this thing about isolation, and the ants
Yeah,
are digging into it and taking pieces of meat away to feed the rest of the colony. Nice, huh?
yeah, interesting.
Disgusting. Completely disgusting. Uh, all right, why don't you take? Let's do. We have time maybe to do one more. Keep going, Amir. We've got a short, two short, two short parts which are kind of equal a second paragraph. So keep going. All afternoon.
One afternoon, the shell of the roach lay there, its row of legs no longer waved, but they were still tremorous as the eating ants tugged at it,
Good.
unfatigued, unfatigued as busy. They were determined to wipe this slate clean.
Yeah, just like as if you're eating on a plate and you eat everything on the plate, you wipe the slate clean. Slate is it's a reference to the chalkboard. It used to be made of a slate, a kind of a rock. So when you erase the chalkboard, you wipe the slate clean. So here, you have to picture that the ants are, it's like they're eating food on a plate. And you wipe it clean, there's nothing left. So they're
Yeah.
really intent on devouring this cockroach that's not entirely dead. Keep going.
Shortly before dark, I again came down the back stairway. Now the familiar arena had changed. Another foot had got more strange and haphazard than my own. The shell of the roach was destroyed. There were also dead ants fleecing the stool. Stillness and death. The ants were suddenly individual in death. The undulating columns were erased, and the work of eating was permanently interrupted for both eaters and eating.
Okay, very good. I'm just going to ask you to, yeah, there we go. we're hearing, we're hearing very loud, I don't know what that is, prayers in the background. Just one point here. The dead ants freckling the stone. Does everyone know what freckles are? Like you think about kids having freckles on their face. What are freckles? Do you know what that is?
The little spots, the browny
Little
spots.
little spots. You kind of think about children having freckles, and then when they grow up, usually your skin changes. So he describes the floor as freckling with ants, like little spots, just like a child's face. Kind of a weird image, because you've got like freckles, and you think of kind of innocent children, and then you've got these dead bodies, dead ants. Kind of a weird image. So we get to visit the roach 3 times. On the way to breakfast when he steps on it, on the way back when it's being disassembled, and one more time at night when someone else stepped on it and finished it off. Where are we going with this story? What is this all about? Let's do this. I'm going to just read a little bit more because the main action of the story happens now. We've gotten a little bit of background of his road trip, but the main action seems to start here. So I'm going to take us to the bottom of the page, and then we'll have a minute or two to ask a few questions. Maybe I'll ask you to read some of this on your own because we didn't quite get to the bottom of part 1, but let's see how far we get. So follow along. Next morning, I walked through the alley. The next morning, when I walked through the alley, no sign remained. So there was no more cockroach.
Thanks
A
God for
sweeper. What's that?
that. Sorry. No, I said thanks God for that.
Thank God, someone put it out of its misery. A sweeper had done her work. There were straight mechanical styrations, so you could see that someone was sweeping the floor because there's like lines on the floor. Styrations, a friendly broom. Good. But I bent to look for some sign or memorial to the departed beast on the stretch of alley which I now knew very well. There were none. Marks of broom, arrangements of pebble and dust. History here had entered upon an epoch which was strange to me. Epoch means period of time. So he's expecting a kind of memorial for his dead bug, but he doesn't find any. Like a little funeral service maybe. But there's nothing, there's no sign that this bug had died. Then finally, a homely death entered what might pass for society in my isolated Miami Beach. The world of the soda fountain at Wheelan's, where strollers came in an air-conditioned place to shake off the sand of the beach, sip a Coke, buy lotions and plastic sunglasses, and sometimes order a quick meal. So he comes to basically a little sidewalk cafe, which in the old days was called a soda fountain, because Coca-Cola was kind of a new thing, and they'd have to do the mixture in front of you. They had a big machine to put the carbonated water and mix it with the syrup to make Coke. So it's kind of like a little sidewalk cafe, but we used to call these soda fountains. Everyone would go and get a soda. I was taking my breakfast, according to my habit, on a stool at the counter. By this time I was acquainted with Frank, the short order cook, who had emigrated from 2nd Avenue in New York 20 years ago for his health. And, for sweet health's sake, he still managed to cover the leathery, pouched skin of age with a fierce Miami tan, despite his long hours in Whelan's service. So the guy is cooking all day and he still manages to get a tan. How does he do it? It relieved the silence to exchange a few words with a man who by now knew my face. 2 scrambled light. So he's talking about his breakfast, scrambled eggs. Yes, same as yesterday, mister. Yeah, like yesterday. Triumph in my voice. He remembers me. Whole wheat toast. You got marmalade today? Marmalade. Frank knew my face and my eggs. Other eaters like me were forking up eggs and grits, sipping their cokes or coffee when a woman entered. Dun, dun, dun. Now here's the decisive moment of the story. A woman entered. She was botched with sunburn, had a swollen nose and a mouth open so wide for noise that all of her features were distorted, emitting emergency signals, turning her head and staring, demanding passage, demanding attention, shouting vehicle. She pushed a stumbling old man along her. "Oh!" she screamed. "A bromo! For God's sake, a bromo! My husband is dying! A bromo, for God's sake!" The man was blue, and he seemed barely conscious. He swayed stiffly as she steered him toward a stool near me. A stool is a chair. "Oh, a bromo right now, please," she wailed. Frank, behind the counter, looked sideways at her, like he doesn't trust her. Looked sideways at her. Pretended the impossible, that he did not hear her, and went on making a bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich on whole wheat toast, light on the mayonnaise. 2 or 3 of us jumped up to support the old man. His skin had a thick purple glow that said death to all of our eyes. "Oh, have mercy, a bromo for my poor husband," the woman screamed. "He didn't do nothing to you. For God's sake, why don't you give it to him?" Does anyone know what a bromo is?
No.
Bromo is basically Alka-Seltzer. Do you know what Alka-Seltzer is?
An aspirin.
Say again?
An aspirin.
Aspirin, yeah. You put it in water, it bubbles, and it takes away your headache. So what do you think about this? A guy comes in with his screaming wife, he's blue, like he can't breathe, and she's asking for an aspirin.
Asphyxia.
It seems like he's choking to death, and she's asking for an aspirin. And Frank, the short order chef, does nothing. Sylvia, why does Frank do nothing? Let's see what Sylvia says.
I wasn't follow. Sorry.
Frank is the chef. Frank remembers the order for the protagonist of the story. Why do you think Frank pretends that he doesn't hear the woman screaming? There's no right or wrong, but what's your opinion? Why do you think he doesn't do anything?
He was
Do you
looking. No,
Do you think he really doesn't hear the woman screaming?
no, he heard, but it's not his business.
Exactly, it's not his business. Jesus, what do you think is wrong with the guy? Do you think he's dying?
I don't know. I think he feels, or he feels like while I don't know how to say.
He feels bad.
Yes, obviously. No, I'm talking about our our men, the men who
The
doesn't
the
who
main
doesn't
character, the narrator.
yes, the car. I think he doesn't mind because he thinks as before with the cockroach or with
Right.
the turtles, the things will going on.
Maybe. Well, let's do this. I have to start the next class, so let me stop here. I'm going to ask you all if you could read to the bottom of the next page where it says part 2 on your own. Read the next few paragraphs on your own, okay? We're going to pick up here on Thursday and find out what this woman is doing and what the relationship is between all the things we've seen so far, okay? So I'm going to stop now. I'll be back in 30 seconds for our business class talking about service, and we'll continue Thursday at the same hour in part 2 of Death in Miami Beach, okay? Bye for now, everyone. See you in just a moment.
Thank you. Have a nice day all. Bye-bye.